Okay, our speaker for this evening is the founder and president of the Save One organization, an international outreach ministry for men and women suffering in silence after abortion. She is currently studying to obtain her master's degree in biblical counseling and is the author of 6 books. The Save One organization currently has 181 chapters in 18 countries. Sheila has traveled the world speaking on the topic of abortion recovery, as well as training abortion recovery leaders and facilitators. After enduring 7 years of personal anguish over choosing an abortion, she found restoration and forgiveness through Jesus Christ. Sheila now lives in Nashville, Tennessee with her husband, Jack Harper, who is the pastor of the Crossroads Church in Antioch, Tennessee, along with her 2 sons. Let's give a warm Indiana welcome to our speaker, Sheila Harper.
Thank you. I know I do have to put this up a little bit. Okay, yeah, that moves easy. I'm not little and petite like Yolanda was up here, with the microphone. So anyway, I am so thankful to be here. Yolanda's one of my good friends, so I can kid with her about that. I have been looking so forward to this because as these months have passed and Mr. Lewis had asked me to come up here and speak, I got to know him a little bit, and I'm not just saying this out of obligation, but his leadership for this organization has been unbelievable. And you can tell that as you get to know him. He vetted me like you can't even imagine. Like he came and checked me out, he asked me all these questions, but that let me know how seriously he takes this. He's not going to just stick somebody up here and not care what they're going to say to you. And so for that, I just thank you that you are an incredible leader, Mr. Lewis, and that you have done an incredible job leading this organization. It's obvious that's what's happening here. But like our dear host said, I am the president and founder of a nonprofit global organization called Save One. And what we do at Save One is we help women and men and family members recover after an abortion. And a lot of times people will look at me when they don't, they may not have heard about abortion recovery, and they say, like, well, does that mean you put your stamp of approval on abortion? And absolutely not. That is not what we do. I have devoted my life to making sure people know the truth of what abortion really does to you, what abortion really devastates in your life. And so when we get people through this program, through the Save One program, get them back to Jesus, and He becomes their healer, then they are able to go into their communities and tell the people the truth of what the devastation this one choice causes. I chose abortion back on March 29, 1985. And it was by far, not even an argument, it was by far the most regrettable mistake of my entire life. It changed the foundation of my life. It changed the trajectory of my life. And not only that, this is one of the parts that people don't tell you about. But not only did I take the life of my first child, but years later, I still suffer consequences from that one choice. This month, my daughter, Megan is her name, should be 32 years old. I should have grandchildren right now, but I have no grandchildren. I have 2 boys who are not in any hurry at all to get married. So if any of you have any available daughters, I am looking diligently for some daughters-in-law. But they are not in a hurry at all to get married. And so I kid them all the time about when am I ever going to have grandkids. But in the back of my mind, I know I probably should have grandkids right now. Nobody tells you that part. But that's what abortion recovery does. No one can argue with someone's personal experience. And when we start chapters of Save One, and I'll tell you a little bit about that, like at the Pregnancy Care Center that Yolanda leads, that's when they can reach their people in their community who have had an abortion, get them through this Bible study, and then at the end of the Bible study, they don't care who knows. They want to go tell people the truth of what this devastation does to you, because we're not hearing it in the media. We're not hearing it in society. And so that's why abortion recovery is so important to us. It's our passion, the entire staff of Save One. We have a global staff. We even have chapters in China. We have actually 205 chapters now. We're growing very quickly. I think when I sent him that bio, that we had 180 or something. Now it's 205. And we're in 19 different countries. And so we're thrilled to see that. And we would love to answer any of your questions or anything like that. We've got a table set up over there, and I have my assistant with me, Tabitha. And we would love to get to know you better, because this has been, you guys are wonderful. This has been an incredible crowd. I've gotten to know several of you. We've gotten to talk and have quick conversations, and I have loved it. I've loved it. I even found out that the victor's daughter lives right down the street from my church. You know, like right there. So I'm going to get her. I'm going to find her. And we're going to be like BFFs before long. But anyway, I'm thrilled to be here. This is an important subject. This is a very serious subject. And it's a subject that obviously you guys are probably veterans in this cause. And so probably a lot of what I'm going to be telling you, you already know, because you're the ones here on a Thursday night at a pro-life banquet. But just to tell you a little bit about what we do, we look at this situation and we recognize that for 44 years we have had abortion on demand. And when I look at the situation that America is in right now, just 2 weeks ago, 2 miles from my church, there was a horrible shooting in Nashville. I'm sure many of you heard about it. It was only on the news for like a minute, and then they didn't report it anymore. But that happened 2 miles from my church. At the same time we were letting out a church down the street, they were getting shot up. And then we look at Las Vegas. And I can't help, because this subject is so important to me, I can't help but think that we're in this place in America because 44 years ago we so devalued life. It all goes back to that moment. We have raised an entire generation of men and women who think that life is expendable, that life isn't the most precious gift that God ever gives us, and that it's not something to fight for. It is something to fight for. It's not something that's expendable. So for 44 years, this has been happening. 44 years of legalized child killing. And then expecting these mothers and fathers to just bounce back like nothing is wrong. Like this was we've been telling women this is a good choice for you. When it's not a good choice for women, for men, for families, for anybody. It's not a good choice. It's 44 years of telling women it's your body, it's your choice. And that's true. But at the same time, taking the life of her own child is somehow, we've told her that somehow this is going to help her or be good for her. And that's not at all true. We've had 44 years of it. Have you ever heard the saying, if you repeat a lie enough times, it becomes the truth? And like I said, I'm sure you guys are probably veterans at this, but the late Dr. Bernard Nathanson, and I saw that he was one of the speakers here a long time ago, maybe in the 70s or 80s or something like that. But the late Dr. Bernard Nathanson, he was a key player in the abortion industry 44 years ago at this time. He was an abortionist who admits to being responsible for 75,000 abortions. But after a conversion experience, he turned his life over to Jesus and became adamantly pro-life and became one of the key players in the opposite direction. It was wonderful. But after all of that happened to him, he confessed what actually happened back then. On that day, January 22nd, 1973, leading up to that. And he explains what they did. He said it only took 5 short years, and they used 3 simple tactics. And when I tell you these tactics, I want you to think about our day and age that we're living in now and see that this isn't still happening. But number 1, he said they captured the media. He admits to fabricating so many numbers and repeating them so many times that the media caught hold of them and they started telling them as truth. He repeated the lie enough times that it became the truth. And so they captured the media. And so the world started believing what they were hearing from the media. Number 2, he said they played the Catholic card. And what I mean by that was he said they so maligned the church that they made everybody believe that the church's ideology was so backward that they didn't have a clue what was really going on. And he made the church look like the villains because they opposed abortion. And somehow we were bad, standing in the way of women's rights. Somehow, the church was. So that was number 2. Number 3, suppressed all scientific evidence that life begins at conception. And that's exactly what they were doing. But those 3 things we can see are still being played out today. Dr. Nathanson, this is a quote from him that I believe says it all. And I want you to hear what he says. He says, it is clear, or he said, he is the late Dr. Nathanson now, but he said, it is clear that permissive abortion is purposeful destruction of what is undeniably human life. It is an impermissible act of deadly violence. One must concede that unplanned pregnancy is a wrenchingly difficult dilemma. But to look for its solution in a deliberate act of destruction is to trash the vast resourcefulness of human ingenuity. So, in other words, he's saying to take the life of another human being is to completely trash what humanity was made for. Sometimes when I have people, and it's usually on airplanes, they'll want to debate me. If they ask me what I do and I tell them, they'll want to come up with these scenarios, these crazy scenarios, and they're like, do you really think a girl should have a baby in this situation? Well, what about this situation? You know? And my answer is always, there is always an alternative to taking someone's life. That's never the answer to any problem. And that's pretty much what Dr. Nathanson was saying. It is a deliberate act of violence against another human being, and that should never be the answer to any of our problems. It never can be. It never should be. So 44 years ago, what we see lived out every day in the young lives of our men and women across our great nation was built entirely on lies. Entirely on lies. And now we have babies being slaughtered by the hundreds of thousands and lives being decimated, all because the public believed lies, and we're still standing on it today. It does my heart so good to see men up here talking about abortion and getting choked up because you're so distraught. Not only was it 25 that you said in one day, not even a full day's work for them, but that's 25 mothers and 25 fathers whose lives are completely shut down, completely wrecked, and they don't even know it yet. So abortion, it's not just that child, it's the child plus that far-reaching effect. There's grandparents, there's aunts, there's uncles that are all attached to that one child. And so it does my heart good to see people just talk about numbers and start to get choked up. I know this is a hard subject. But we can also look on the bright side. I love what all Mike Victor said. Mike, right? Victor, we're tight. We're really close. I had to check. As soon as I said Mike, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know if that's his name. But I mean, everything he said was positive. It's like we've made so many inroads. There are so many good things that are happening. We've changed laws through various court cases. We have voted in some incredible pro-life presidents. We have voted in incredible pro-life senators and congressmen and women and things like that, and that's been an incredible moment. And I would go so far as to say, if you're truly pro-life, you have to vote pro-life. You have to take that vote and do what's right with it. We can't have our cake and eat it too. And I feel like that's a lot of times that's what people want to do. Well, oh yes, I'm pro-life, but this guy or this girl over here is going to do this for our economy. You can't do that. You just can't do that. And so we have to look at the positive side and see all the good that has come from this movement and from the Right to Life organizations all across the country. There's a lot to celebrate, too, when we look at what's happening in individual states who aren't willing to just sit and wait till they get, this or that or whatever. They're willing to stand up for what is right, no matter what the cost. And so I love seeing that. And I know, you guys are the ones here, and you guys are the ones probably making this stuff happen in your communities. But I'm asking you tonight to go even further, to dream bigger, to take more action, to do bigger things. Don't do the same as you always have. It's time for us to do something radically different, and think bigger, dream bigger, do more, take larger action. It's almost more than we can comprehend when we think of how vast and how far-reaching the abortion industry is into our lives. It's almost incomprehensible what they have been allowed to get away with, Planned Parenthood and the whole abortion industry. We can look at their multi-billion-dollar industry that it is and then compare it to the budgets of our state Right to Life organizations, our pregnancy centers, our abortion recovery groups, and see that there's a correlation between David and Goliath. Because we're David and we're fighting this Goliath over here. So we can see that correlation, but we can use David also as our example. The scripture says he ran to battle. He ran to battle. Who does that? That's amazing to me, those words, that he ran to an unwinnable battle. It's amazing to think that he did that. A fight that seemed unwinnable, he ran toward, knowing the God of angel armies had his back. Nobody knew that the God of angel armies had gone before him and cleared the path. He didn't even know that. He just did what he knew was right. But what he found when he got on that battlefield that day, I'm sure as a young boy, a young shepherd boy, he probably romanced the idea and thought when he got out there to the battlefield that he would see his brothers and all of these huge, big soldiers fighting for him. And when he got out there in the battlefield, what did he find? He found all these men cowering in the bushes, terrified. And they were terrified because in their minds the battle was supposed to happen one way. But the circumstances changed. The giant showed up, and so they got scared and went and jumped in the bushes, and they were terrified. So he went out there and saw all of this, and I picture, and the Bible doesn't say this, but I picture him being disgusted because he says 5 words that brought everything back into focus. And it was actually a question that he asked. But he said 5 words, and the 5 words were, "Is there not a cause?" He looked at this army, and he asked them, "Is there not a cause?" He knew there was a cause much greater than they were. that was worth fighting for, that was worth risking his life for, sacrificing for. He knew that it was there. He reminded the people who were supposed to be fighting the battle that there was a much greater cause than any of them knew about. He didn't mean that this was something that, oh, we should go run and hide from because the giant showed up, and none of us expected that. No, he kept their focus. There's a cause here. And it doesn't matter if the circumstances change. There's a cause that we have to be fighting for. We're still talking about David today for one reason. And that reason is because he relied completely on the one who could win every battle. That's who he relies on. We have to bring this issue right smack dab back into the center of the church. The church is powerful. The church, the one that has the God of angel armies power. That's where we need to be fighting this battle as well. And who is the church? It's me. It's you. All of us make up the church. I'm not talking about denominations and you're this and you're that. I mean us collectively as a body. We're the church. And it's us who need to be fighting this battle. There's a reason we're here on this earth for such a time as this. There's a reason we all were put here at this time. And could it be that it's for this reason? Because God knew you would have the heart for this. And you would have the power for this. You would have the courage and strength for this. This is a fight that is happening on our watches. This is a cause that's happening on our watches. When God-fearing, Bible-believing pastors and church leaders start taking this issue back from the pro-abortion side, we will see the tide turn. When we step out, like David did, with radical, risk-taking faith like he had, that's when we will see the Davids rise up against the Goliath. And we'll start to see the tide turn. God loves a challenge. He loves it when we step out in faith with no net. Because when we do that, He has to show up. That's when we're weak and He is made strong. When we step out like that. Those are the moments that define us. David was defined by that moment. He didn't wait to go into battle until he was assured of victory. He didn't eke his way in slowly, taking opinion polls and seeing if everybody was okay with what he was doing. He saw that a battle needed to be fought, and he fought it. Somebody had to stiffen up their spine to get the courage of everybody else going. And it took a David to fight Goliath. And it took that radical, risk-taking faith to do it. Like I said, God loves a challenge. And Scripture says that David ran. I mean, that is something to get excited about. He ran to battle, and there's a reason why that's in the Bible. It's an example for us to follow. David, he is the perfect example. He remembered the cause and knew it was important enough for him to risk his very life. God responds to that type of faith. Noah built an ark and lives were saved. Soldiers marched and Jericho fell. A staff was raised and a sea was parted. A small lunch was shared and thousands were fed. He loves those moments of when we step out and say, I have no idea how this is going to win. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I know that there's a battle and it needs to be fought, and I'm willing to do it. That's when God shows up every time with victory. And it's an amazing thing to see. It's an amazing thing to be a part of. And I know that we have Davids sitting all across this room right now. Men and women who can rise up and do this thing. It's time for us to do something radically different. It's time for us to run. It's time for the church to rise up and say no more. We've been fighting a good fight, and it's been working, but it's time to do more. It's time to run. Are we going to have to answer for what happened on this earth while we were here? Are we going to have to say, You know, I want to get up there and say, I left everything out on the field. I did everything I possibly could. In my human strength and your courage, God, I did everything that I possibly could to end abortion in our country and around our world. And I know that's what you guys probably want too. So I want tonight to be about encouraging you to run, to battle, to think bigger, to put yourself out there. Even if you make a fool out of yourself, you'll please God because you did it with a pure heart. You did it because He encouraged you to. He's enticing you to battle. He wants to see you run and join the fight because it will be then that the wind will be at your back. And you will see victories like you've never seen before. Looking at this fight with human eyes, it's unwinnable. And I'm sure people were looking at David thinking he was going on a suicide mission. I mean, you would think that, looking at the odds for him. But when they saw his courage and experienced seeing God had gone before him, then their spines were stiffened and their courage became great. And he didn't have any promise of the army coming behind him to fight, but they did because they saw his courage. They saw him run to battle. There are people watching you that are waiting. They don't want to join, but when they see you run to battle, then their courage will come, and they'll join you. And I promise you, I mean, this is the bad news, when you really get ensconced in this subject, you're going to rock the boat. If you're a pastor, you'll lose church members. I can guarantee you, and me and Mr. Lewis have never even talked about this, I can guarantee you he's lost friends over this subject because he's been in it so long. But he has one person, one audience that he has made happy, and that's the only audience that matters, and that's God. So I want you guys to take that radical, risk-taking faith. Go home tonight and ask God, what is it? What is it bigger that I can do? Where do I need to run to battle? And I want you to leave with that thought. So may God bless America, and may these next 44 years bring about an America who protects and sanctifies life because of what you're doing here. Thank you.